Hey everybody, welcome back to the adventures of Anton Rayne. Man, my voice is probably getting a little tired. I've recorded a bunch of these tonight because this game is just getting more and more interesting. Oh, I don't want to read reports. Galcondon's violence in dire. Once again, these are like the extremist religious sect of the Bloods. There have been incidents of religious violence committed by Bludish Galcondis in dire. The attacks targeted members of other religious groups, resulting in injuries and property damage. The situation is concerning and warrants immediate attention from law enforcement and government officials. It is recommended that measures be taken to prevent future incidents and to address the root causes of the violence. That's not what I wanted to go to. Okay, we went to another story. Geralt unveils newest wine and sends message. The famed dandelion label. We read that last time in a different one. So these guys made a fancy wine. Mr. Hart Bellasord has sent the fine selection to the brewing palace where we live and wrote a little note to accompany it. Wine, like politics, operates not on a scale of lesser or greater, but on a spectrum of nuanced complexity. The distinctions are subjective. The flavors are as variable as policy decisions. As a winemaker studies the subtle notes in each grape, a politician must examine the unique shades of each strategy. If I am to choose between one vintage and another, between one policy and another, I'd rather not choose at all, but rather appreciate and comprehend the intricate interplay each presents. After all, the art of winemaking, and indeed politics, lies not in forced choices, but in understanding and celebrating the subtle complexities inherent within. How's that help me? You saying you wouldn't make any decisions as the president? It's a good thing you're making wine. This latest edition of wine, though, is expected to uphold the characteristic floral tones, depth, and elegance that dandelion wines are cherished for. Okay. Let's get the other more important thing. I accidentally switched to the... I wanted the other Burgian report here. The violent one, not the wine one. BFF, the Bludish Freedom Front, has bombed a police station. Wait, we already read that one last time. That's old news. Briefing on a proposal for education reform. Does that mean we gotta hang out with Sierra again? You know, I really, really hate to say it, but after what happened in last episode, for the first time ever, I want to know what Sierra has to say. I want to hear what she has to say. We were still in Lyran, staying at a modest guest house for state employees. Sierra set up a meeting with me and Lucian to go over her plans for education reform after our school visit. Lucian was seated across from me at the table, going through documents. Sierra entered the room. After yesterday, I couldn't even sleep thinking about that little boy and girl. I have never been more sure of my intentions to reform our education system. Lucian took off his reading glasses and put it on the table. I agree. I can't believe I'd ever say that. I agree. Exactly. Woman, why can't you take a victory? Why can't you take a victory? You always gotta say something. You gotta have the final word when there ain't no final word to have. If I was your husband, I would kill myself. Twice. Those students have to repeat that same soulless propaganda every single day. They are being brainwashed at an age when their minds need to be free. Go tell Lilius that, man. She'll have a conniption. She'll have an aneurysm and just fall down dead hearing you say that you're not going to worship soul. On top of that, young girls are denied the same opportunities as boys. They're forced into the role of housewife before they even reach puberty. Nothing's changed since I went to school. Women like me, Lilius, Nia, even your wife, we had to study twice as hard to receive the same university education that you and Lucian took for granted. I didn't take it for granted. I didn't even think about it. That's what it means. What? Is that the kind of country you want your daughter to grow up in? Mr. President, we need a change. We need to free the minds of these young people. They are our future. You mean like we gotta give them some peyote? Very well. What do we need for an education reform? We need to keep politics out of the curriculum. Sol should only be viewed as a historical figure. Children shouldn't have to repeat his name every day. This is actively poisoning young, bright minds. Instead of thinking for themselves, they're learning to take things at face value. Honey, I hate to break this to you. School does not usually teach anybody how to think for themselves. People either learn it through life or they fucking don't. And if they don't, you see it all day long on Twitter when they scream and try and lecture people. We also need to ensure boys and girls receive the same instruction. Handcrafts and like knitting and sewing should be taught to both sexes or not at all. Why not just have it be optional? Sordland's youth must be technically skilled and capable for the next decade. That won't be possible with the amount of nationalistic indoctrination and narrow-minded thinking found in schools today. I agree. Could you say it in less words? Either we raise a generation ready for the challenges of the future or not. What will it be, Mr. President? Reform the education system. You will not regret it. I'll get to work immediately. Now that that decision was made, let's move on. This is why I love Lucien, right? I had a chance to ask Lucien his opinion there. I didn't because I'd already made up my mind. Lucien did not bitch. He did not moan. He did not talk for 3 hours about his opinion. He just gets shit done. That's why he's the best. Very well. Sierra skimmed over her documents before continuing. With no change in budget, the ministry was left to its own devices. We made some tough choices, but still lack additional funds. Yeah, look, you're not going to get more money. We ain't got no money. Therefore, we investigating if privatization education would draw enough funds to conduct investments. What are the advantages of privatization? There aren't many, but it would give us sorely needed funds and increase competition among schools. That seems like two very, very good reasons to do it. In fact, that seems like two of the best reasons to do it. It would promote our overall economic strategy of promoting a market economy. A few minutes of deliberation passed. We can manage without additional funds. The only reason I wanted to consider it is to have more money to improve education. So what is your decision? No, initiate privatization to draw more funds. This will allow for more competition and quality. Go for it. Will do. That should be it for now. I'll get back to work and report later. This has been a very productive day. I'll return to Holsword. That was the easiest meeting I've ever had with Sierra. Thank you both for your time. That was actually a nice meeting. We dispersed after spending nearly the entire day together. I took a moment simply to breathe the fresh evening air of Lyran. I felt calmer here somehow, but I would have to return to the chaos of Holsword soon enough. That was good news, good news, good news. Oh, and we got some money in our budget. We're making some money. Greater Holsword, free of protests? What? What? This week, a decisive intervention by government forces and the police has brought a conclusive end to the paralyzing protests? Oh, I was hoping that they didn't want to protest anymore. These actions, albeit necessary, left a tragic trail of casualties? Oh, and had a profound impact on the economy. I think they mean the protests as a whole, not bringing them to an end. A protest leader from Confront voiced the sentiments of many when he said, "We want peace for our brothers and sisters of Sordland. We don't want more repression." This heartfelt plea underscores the widening chasm between the authorities and the population. The day witnessed a large-scale operation where hundreds of riot police cleared protesters from northern Holsword, driving them into surrounding streets. The question remains as whether this forceful action will quell the rising tide of dissent or merely redirect it. What have you done, Lilius? Lilius, the protests had become peaceful. Oh my god, I'm glad I gave the money to Nia to fight corruption instead of Lilius for more street beat cops. Oh, she might have made things way worse for us. Downsizing marks a new era for Gassam. We already know that. The only thing I can hope is that it's going to save the company. I don't know if it will. The head of Sordland's second opposition party, National Front, it's the super righties. This guy complains about everything. Kibner says Rayne is making a mistake. He says Rayne is making a mistake by working with Richter, the guy in charge of the Pifja party. He doesn't want to work with us on the Constitution. I wasn't trying to appeal to the hardcore righties. We're a conservative party. They're like the ultra-right. Administration announces education privatization. The Ministry of Education has recently announced the upcoming changes to the education system. The administration has decided to follow through with the promotion of the market economy and started the privatization of education. There was a mixed response, where one side is believing that this change will only serve the oligarchs behind the corporations, and the other side defending that this will increase the quality of education. We will see which side is right and the effects of this decision in the long term. Alright, what's the Lockhaven Times got for us? Oh wait, that was the Lockhaven Times? Alright, what's the Radical got for us? Demonstrators arrested. I didn't want that. I think Lilius might have gone too far. Tens of thousands of demonstrators were driven out from the city centers by riot police in the week. According to ground sources, thousands have been detained. The government has still not declared the real numbers or the identities of the individuals. This is not good. The government cracked down on the protests around the country, was swift and brought an end to the chaos in major cities such as Whole Sword and Lockhaven. Reports from mayors around the country came in today, saying that protests are under control and stability will return. Now that is good. That is good. We want stability to return. It's good for the economy. Ooh, we got news about the economy? Please be green news. Tourism industry at average activity level. Woot, woot. Because for a while there, it was in the red. Right? And they wanted us to spend all this money on a tourism campaign. And I'm like, we're not going to do that while there's violence. Well, taking care of the violence and the protest has had tourism come up naturally because people don't mind coming to a place that's not a war zone. So we solved it in a different way. Welfare. Education privatization. People can build private schools. And we're doing education reform to kind of take out the soulless doctrines and teaching. There is an education gap now. That is probably going to happen, right? Rich guys can send their kids to rich schools. But the problem we had before was everybody got a shit education, or now we'll have kids with mediocre educations and other kids with good educations. Either way, it's a step up. This shift towards a privatized education system has raised concerns regarding its impact on the country's social and economic well-being. The privatization has led to a growing educational gap between the wealthy and less affluent members of society. I assume that's the game abstracting it, that it didn't happen in one day. I got real smart in one day, Dad. As those with more financial resources are better to access quality education. Furthermore, this gap could also create social instability as it perpetuates inequality and limits opportunities for social mobility. And then modernized education techniques. So education gap is like in between. It's orange. The modern education technique, green. Good news, good news. So Sierra is modernizing the educational techniques, and I didn't even have to increase her budget. She is coming through. Oh, is there a world report? The United Cantana launches second satellite. In a significant technological milestone, the United Cantana has successfully launched a second satellite capable of facilitating radio communications. This development catapults the United Cantana to the forefront of space-based communication technology, enabling radio signals to be transmitted via satellite for the first time. No other nation currently possesses this advanced capability. Not even Arcasia, not even the West. And what do we got here in Whole Sword? Report. The Ministry of Education has started work on education reform. The Minister of Education, Sierra Walda, is reporting she has begun working. Good. The details of the education reform will be finalized over the coming months. If the reform package is accepted, the next steps of the process would be to discuss the indoctrination of education. So I don't know if we have to pass that through Congress or what. And the General Staff commends the administration. The General Staff convened at Camp Strongarm, which is the largest military base in Sordland. A session much shorter than usual concluded with a positive military analysis of Sordland's field capabilities. The Chief of the Armed Forces, Kruger, made a public press statement praising the administration, that's us, and its efforts to strengthen the most important branch of the government, the military. All staff generals co-signed a letter of support to the Rayne administration. So at least right now, we have very strong support from the military. Good news, good news, good news. Oh, and what is this? Open city and stuff? What's going on in the city? It still says there's protests. The Gruny Redevelopment Investment. The Gruny Rural Redevelopment Investment is a proposal by Gus Manger to bolster Sordland's rural economies and secure the nation's food sustainability. Long ago, he said he had some plan to upgrade the farm equipment in our country and I think create new crops that would hopefully grow better in our soil. The plan envisages a judicious allocation of resources to vitalize agricultural communities, fortify food security, and elevate the regional economy of Gruny. Gruny just being this province in the southeast. One potential strategy is the provision of subsidies for new farms, encouraging more players into the agricultural field. Alternatively, Manager proposes an investment in the mechanization of existing farms to improve the productivity or initiation of crop research to foster innovation. So these are our four choices. We don't spend any money on it. Or number one, we spend two monies, we only have one money, on subsidies for new farms. Number two, we could mechanize the existing farms. And number three, we could initiate new crop research. If we were in modern times, I wouldn't do any of these. But we're in the 1950s, and this time period matters. When was it that Khrushchev came to America in his famous trip? I think the one where he wanted to go to Disneyland or Disney World and they wouldn't let him. One of the reasons he came to America was to study the fact that America had way more advanced farming technology and techniques than the Soviet Union did. And I think it's more or less in this time period. I could be off by a number of years. And so it would make sense that our nation, too, is way behind, especially when it comes to the mechanization of farming. So I'm not going to subsidize for new farms. We don't have the ability to pay for both of these. I wouldn't even if we could. But I think mechanizing existing farms could, in theory, even though I'm not a big fan of the government doing it, it's at such a pivotal time, technology changing-wise for us, that I think it's an investment I'm willing to make. We're going to mechanize existing farms, because if a farmer can grow more food than they need, they can sell it. More people can afford food. There'll be less food scarcity, and hopefully these farms, because a lot of them are going to still be family farms, right? It's the 1950s. It's not like modern times where most farms are giant corporate farms. This will be helping a lot of families too. So let's mechanize existing farms. We're going to take one from the government budget for the team. Let's see, is the news going to be the economists complaining about it? Or is it going to be someone who would say nice things? The Holstered Post. Mechanization, the key to agrarian progress? Like, what are those newfangled tractors? In a bold move, the government has opted to invest in the mechanization of existing farms as part of the Gruny Rural Development Investment Plan. This initiative aims to boost productivity and could help secure our food supplies. While the transition may be challenging for traditional farming communities, it's a step towards modernizing our agricultural practices. Yes, yes, yes! Let's no longer live in the dark days. And so you can see under the economy, we get something that we're investing in Gruny. I kind of feel bad that we can't invest everywhere, but it is what it is. Come on, do we get any good news about farming shit? All these red things are all the bad economy things that are going on. We're trying to fix what we can. We're trying to. Well, I think... What's the next thing? Meeting with Gloria Tori. We will save that for next time.